course, that will be followed by a special guest in studio. In fact, my guest is already in. So as soon as I'm through with the first segment, you will see my guest. In case you miss it, of course, you realize we did talk a lot about the international ICC T20, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't allow you to see the final aspect of it. And Australia emerged champions of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup when they defeated Kane Williamson-led New Zealand team by 8 wickets and 7 balls to spare. Captain Williamson top scored with 85 from 45 deliveries before being caught at deep mid-wicket by Glenn Maxwell of Josh Hazlewood. Martin Gapkill 28 and Glenn Phillips 18, helping the Black Caps to 172 for 4. Bowling for Australia, Josh Hazlewood picked up 3 for 16 and Adam Zampa 1 for 26. Nearly 173 for victory. After upping to fill, the Aussies 5-time 50 over world champions lost Aaron Finch for 5 early when the top edge Trent bowled to Darrell Mitchell in the deep. David Warner 53 from 38 deliveries and Mitchell Mass 77 from 50 deliveries came together for a 92-run second wicket partnership to take the side close to glory. Mash reached his half century 3 deliveries quicker than his teammate to set a new record for the fastest 50 in T20 World Cup final. Maxwell remained 28 not out. Bowling for New Zealand, Trent bowled, took 2 for 18. Player of the match, Mitchell Marsh. Player of the tournament, David Warner. The Aussies will defend the T20 World Cup crown as hosts in 2022. Of course, you can see the Australians celebrating. And you know, the West Indies, they didn't do well at all. We remain with cricket, and this time, women and West Indies women head into the ICC World Cup qualifiers on a winning note after defeating Thailand. Women by 151 runs in their warm-up match at the Sunrisers Sports Club earlier yesterday. Gianna Doughton, fresh from her impressive showing against Pakistan, struck 11 fours and a 6 for her contribution of 101, as the West Indies women posted 230 for 6 from their 50 overs. Hayley Matthews 57. Thailand were bowled out for 79 in 36.3 overs, with Salman and Aline the pick of the West Indies bowlers. The West Indies, meanwhile, will start their World Cup campaign on Tuesday, 23rd November against Ireland. The second encounter will be against Sri Lanka on Saturday, 27th, and Netherlands on Monday, 29th. The Super Six will start on December 1st. The West Indies squad: Stephanie Taylor, captain; Anissa Mohammed, vice captain; Aliyah Aline, Shamin Campbell, Shamila Cornell, Drianda Doughton, Shanita Grimmond, Chanel Henry, Kiana Joseph, Casey Knight, Kiosha Knight, Hayley Matthews, Shandon Nation, Shakira Selman, and Rashida Williams. The reserves: Sherry Ann Fraser, Shabika Gangba, and Karishma Ramhasak. And of course, you just saw the photos of the West Indies women, and they will be in action on Tuesday in the ICC Women World Cup qualifiers. Meanwhile, the West Indies men team will start the campaign tomorrow morning at 12:30, which is AM, 12:30 our time, when they face Sri Lanka in the first test in Galle. The West Indies will select the playing 11 from Craig Brathwaite, captain; Jermaine Blackwood, vice captain; Dikema Bonner, Ruston Chase, Rakim Cornwall, Joshua De Silva, Shannon Gabriel, Jason Holder, Shai Hope, Kyle Myers, Virasamy Pamal, Kima Roach, Jaden Sales, Jeremy Solanzo, and Jomel Rarikan. Of course, we continue and we take a quick look at the SLC election, and that was Tuesday. Of course, that's the big news. And if you miss it, like I said, Alfred Emmanuel. Yes, Alfred Emmanuel. That name ring a bell, right? Okay, great. Has been elected as a new president of the St. Lucia Olympic Committee, and the third in its history after being recognized by the International Olympic Committee, IOC, in 1993. On Tuesday, 16 2021, he replaced outgoing President Fortuna Belarus, who did not seek re-election after serving 2 four-year terms. The election took place at the SLC headquarters in Lac-Clary, with all 21 National Sports Federation in attendance. Emmanuel, the SLC General Secretary for 25 years, beat President of the St. Lucia Aquatic Federation, and businessman Eddie Hazel 15-6. Of course, Emmanuel will have as his deputies George Charlemagne, an attorney at law, and Trevor Hunt, a former national tennis player. Theodore Teddy Matthews, a former president of the SLOC, now president of the St. Lucia Table Tennis Association, takes over as Secretary General, president of the St. Lucia Volleyball Association. Another attorney at law, Shane Felicien, is the new Assistant Secretary General and Treasurer, while Joyce Huxley was retained as Treasurer unopposed. Also on the SLOC team, National Federation Representative Vice President Sailing Lily Begas, President of the St. Lucia Athletics Association Cornelius Brin, President of the St. Lucia Boxing Association David Christopher, and Vice President of the St. Lucia Bodybuilding and Fitness Association Monica Dudley. And St. Lucia, trust me on this one. Time does not permit me tonight, all right, to go in depth with this. But trust me, just trust me, all right? We'll have more on that. But some food for thought. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt for 2 years, and I'm referring to 2020 and 2021. I have exempted those 2 years because of COVID-19 pandemic. And my question is, how influential or successful have their individual sporting disciplines have been during the period 2017-2019? Food for thought. All right? You heard the names on the executive? Food for thought. We turn our attention now to Pan Am Games Junior. And of course, that's going to take place next week. And the St. Lucia Olympic Committee on Monday, 15th, 2021, announced the Islands team that will compete across a range of sports at the first ever Junior Pan Am Games in Cali, Colombia, from November 25th to December 5th. The games were originally scheduled to be held last month, but were postponed owing to continued uncertainty surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. The 14-member team includes the following track athlete Michael Joseph, who will compete in the 400 meters on December 2nd. He'll be under the watchful eyes of coach Kevin McPhee. Basketball male free and free, Ryan Philogen, Alistair Theodore, Garrick George, and Cleston Leon. The team will compete in the early rounds on December 2nd and 3rd under coach Ron DeMorville. Basketball female, Maya George, Petal Brown, Kayla Stevens, Romani Luis Emmanuel. The team will compete in the first round on December 2nd to 3rd, and the coach is Visoka Leon, a Cuban coach. Swimming, Jehan Odlam Smith will compete in the 50-meter freestyle, 100-meter butterfly, 100-meter backstroke, 200-meter butterfly. Odlam Smith represented St. Lucia at the Junior Olympic Games in Argentina in 2018. DeAndre Blanchard will compete in the 50-meter freestyle, 100-meter breaststroke, and 100-meter freestyle. Naima Hazel will compete in the 50-meter freestyle, 100-meter breaststroke, and 100-meter backstroke. National record holder at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games in the 50-meter freestyle, Michele Charlemagne, will again compete in the 50-meter freestyle, in addition to the 100-meter breaststroke, and the 100-meter freestyle. And of course, the 4 swimmers will compete during the period November 26th to 30th, and will be under the watchful eyes of coach Peter James. Another Tokyo Olympian, laser sailor, Luc Chevier, will compete during the period December 2nd to 4th. And of course, Luc will become accompanied by his coach, Pablo Jo Sierra. He's Spanish coach. The athletes will be accompanied by Leota Charlemagne Mason, the team chef de mission, The athletes will arrive 3 days before their respective competition and depart 1 day later. So as always, we here at UTV wish Team St. Lucia all the very best. Of course, I echo that similar sentiment with our viewers on television and Facebook as well. As we close our first segment, Channel Swim, tomorrow Sunday, November 21st, national swimmer Vanessa Eugene will be attempting a 14-kilometer swim, and of course, weather permitting, from Sanders Grant to Rat Island and back. Besides being the first swimmer to attempt this swim route, she'll also become the first St. Lucian woman swim documented through the international body Marathon Swimmers Federation, MSF. On August 25th, Eugene took to the waters in Rundy Bay to compete in a 6.25 kilometer to La Roche and back in 2 hours, 48 minutes and 20 seconds. This being under 10 kilometers was not classified as a full marathon swim, but was a major accomplishment as the first documented woman to complete this swim. Eugene is an employee of Sanders Grant and Spa Beach Resort as part of their water sport department. She is also a diving instructor, trained lifeguard, and swim coach. And they expect her to be back on shore by 11, and depends on the current, all right, the latest 1 p.m. But for those persons who will be at the seaside tomorrow, at the Grand, please, when she leaves or attempt to leave the water, don't go and hug her before the horn is sounded. In the event that you hug her before the horn, it will be a no-no. That means you assisted her to cross the finishing line. So please stay on shore and allow her to proceed, and then the horn from the boat, that means she crossed the finishing line. I hope you all get it clear. All right? So that's it on the first segment. You can run to the kitchen or the fridge or whatever and take something to bite, something to drink, because my guest may be right back when I return.
UTV. I know you want to say
got it. If you identify with the most pulsating, the most riveting, the most eye-capturing UTV. To advertise with UTV, dial 484-7588 or 572-7588. For some of the most competitive rates, amazing programming, and bang for your buck. The most popular streaming channel, UTV 124 on Facebook. Get it now! Check us out on Instagram at UTV 124. Email us utvslu@gmail.com. UTV. It's not just for me. It's definitely TV for you.
Protocols for international visitors while in St. Lucia. The following protocols are established to guide the stay of all guests while on island in order to mitigate any possible spread of infection. During the first 14 days, visitors are allowed to patronize approved beaches, restaurant, sea and land excursions, and sites and attractions. All visits are scheduled and pre-arranged by their respective accommodation providers. During this period, all visitors will be transported to and from the certified sites using only COVID-19 certified tourism transportation. After the first 14 days, if any visitor wishes to stay on island beyond the 14-day period, they must apply for and receive a health clearance certificate from the Ministry of Health. Visitors will be allowed to travel, be out in the wider public, and patronize local businesses unsupervised once health clearance certificates have been received. During their entire stay, visitors must wear their mask whenever they are in public places and maintain the mandatory 6 feet distancing from others.
channel 124. What is that? UTV, that stands for under, ground.
Then you find the Fisher Fox Palace. Patient Eddie Mercury say Buddha. And then you wonder Puji Mercury superior, lasts longer and even faster. Mercury Cipro 75, 90, ancien 15, ancien 50, et 200 horsepower. Plibo warranty on the market and the price is right for your pocket. A Chalma they will make me use my vocabulary. Mercury's performance, durability, fuel efficiency, and patient Mercury give Plibo puyo. Machine Mercury says Cipro. Machine Mercury coming on plein way, please it. Let me show you machine Mercury travail bali. Moi v'là ou koute saïdi.
Avant moun te gade Mercury c'est bonda. A Chalma Mercury qui met.
Welcome back. And of course, you heard in our first segment, the West Indies women, they will be in action on Tuesday in the first encounter in the ICC Women World Cup. And of course, West Indies will be playing Sri Lanka from 12:30 a.m. tomorrow in the first test in Gal. Of course, we wish both teams all the very best. And of course, St. Lucia Junior Panam team, they leave Ireland. Well, some of the athletes, they leave this coming week for the first ever Pan Am Juniors in Cali, Colombia. Of course, the St. Lucia Olympic Committee elected a new executive, and our good friend, Alfred Emmanuel, will head for the next 4 years, 2021 to 2025. As always, I wish the team all the very best in their endeavors as they look to push sports in St. Lucia. Well, without further ado, guess what? My guest, the Minister responsible for Youth Development and Sports, and I'm referring to no other than Kenson Kazime. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, good evening. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thanks for inviting me, and of course, looking forward to a very good discussion.
Okay.
Good evening,
good evening again. I know you took some time off your busy schedule to be here, and that's, again, I want to thank you for coming. But even before I introduce my guest fully, I just want to acknowledge men who over the years has laid a foundation for sports in this country, from the club, community, and national level, referring to the various sporting organizations, and those who were athletes and who represented St. Lucia, and even those who, as sponsors, play their role. Past ministers of government, past permanent secretaries, whatever you did for sports in this country, I want to take this opportunity to wish you a belated, which was yesterday, belated International Men's Day. And of course, that's from me, and of course, on the behalf of management of UTV Channel 124. And I guess the women as well, acknowledging you all, or us men, for our contribution. And even before I go further into introducing my guest, I just want him to say a few words on behalf of the ministry in terms of International Men's Day.
Thank you very much. Of course, happy International Men's Day, as you said, Anthony. Belatedly, there were lots of men who played a very integral role in ensuring that I'm here today. And of course, I want to thank the men in the Grosley community who saw the talent, they saw the skills, they saw the capabilities, and they, rendered a lot of support to me growing up as a young sportsman in the community. And of course, I always mention the likes of Ricky McDoom, Joe Hall, John Eugene, There was Wendell Roberts at the time, Of course, at that time you had Dominic Fide in and around the field doing his thing. You had a number of men who really helped out. Alton Crafton, Ken Crafton, I remember building the holistic sporting development in me. On and off the field in terms of etiquette. These were gentlemen.
Yeah.
I remember there was a Norby from Kaimaji at the time. If you had your shit out of your pants, what you doing, Mike?
You have to tuck that in.
Tuck that in, and now you see things differently.
Yeah, differently,
Chuckle, because you wouldn't get away with that with these men. So I want to say hats off to all of them island wide. Down south you think of Emmanuel Bellas being a real stand-up dad, being a stand-up man in sports development, and on the East Coast, Somers Augustine is somebody that I've been close to now, nurturing a young Dijal Augustine, and the East Coast. There are so many. Donald Dave Albert, a man who has, loved the sports and been part of sporting development. Although he tell you he's from Schuzel, but a lot of men that are in sports, even at the ministry, a lot of men have committed their lives to developing sports. Happy belated International Men's Day.
Thank you. Of course, I don't want to forget those who pass, and to their family as well. I extend that sincerity.
Stephen Gustav, let me apologize. It's my father. Happy International Men's Day. A former defender, footballer, and rest in peace, Michael Gustav. We just buried him on Thursday. Died of COVID. Was a very good rugby player, national rugby player. My uncle. All these men and everybody in Grosley, the Grosley men, really came to the fore and ensured that my maturation was something that would lead to success.
Okay. Well, my belated sympathy to you and to the family. A former student of Leotas Comprehensive Secondary School, Safa Lewis Community College, graduating class of 2006. And of course, he attended the Grambling State University, sportscaster, head and television, and NBC. Former employee in the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. Now minister responsible for the above ministry. And I try to rack my brains whether that has ever happened. Someone who was working in the ministry as an employee and now in charge of the ministry. I try to figure. I don't think so.
There was one. My predecessor in Grosley.
Oh he worked. That's Leonard.
He was a youth sports officer for a while.
Right.
He got into physiotherapy.
Right.
And then subsequently became a minister of youth development and sports. Of course, he's one of the individuals from the Grosley community. When I started track and field, Orion Sports Club, that was one of the clubs that was the first club. As a matter of fact, when I made the national under 15 track team at the age of 8 going on to 9. He was the coach of Orion, and then subsequently we had Simpex Orion Sports Club, and so he's one of the respected sportsmen in the community of Grosley, of course, along with the likes of Francis Babalastik, Elijah Joseph, Regis Gustav, John Eugene, and the likes. Of course, all these men did their thing at some point in Grosley.
Apparently, there's a special coconut in Grosley from Ministry of Sports as a worker to be a minister.
Absolutely.
I will look for that coconut.
Yes.
But Kazime, quickly, in a nutshell, just take me through those early years in a nutshell. Just summarize it.
Very quickly, it was a struggle, of course, financially that I did not feel. And I thank my mother all the time for that, because she always used to say, you might be hungry, but you'll never be starving. I remember my mother saying that all the time. I remember growing up, my mom knowing me to love track and field, especially, and waking me up in the morning on days that perhaps I would have overslept, for me to go and run on the beach, go run Pigeon Island along the road, just to really build that discipline. Until this day, I don't sleep after the sun. Till this day, I'm up before the sun rises its eye. And if I am sleeping after that time, then you know that I'm ill, not doing well. I've never been a big sleeper. And I always speak to those individuals in the Grosley constituency that saw something in me. And I always speak to Mario Michel as being one of the standouts. Mario Michel, I met him the first time I actually spoke to him was at a barbershop, Apollo, in Groseley. And I remember seeing this man as, you know, some amazing person. I grew up in a family that was Labour Party, and his picture was on the wall. And I remember being in the barbershop, and then he started talking to me, and I was flabbergasted for that time. And he said to me, "You are a national athlete doing representing St. Lucia. It's as a minister for sports and the MP for Groseley. I have to know you," because I remember asking him, "You know me?" You know, feeling like you know me. And you know, that was the response I got from him. And meeting him by the Groseley playing field, every time you're playing in the Groseley League, he stood under that famous tamarind tree, just down looking. And you know, of course, the investment in me, you know, as a parliamentary rep and as a minister of sports, I could never forget. On the other side, there was Guy Mayers, who lives in Rodney Bay. Of course, he was another individual that I went to school with his son. And so at Arthur Lewis, he was one of those that you know, that stepped up and really helped me, despite the fact that he knew my family is leaning. I always appreciated that about him. And you know, and there were a number of people, but Elise, former teacher at Hess, now principal from the Groseley community, when it came to cricket, really contributed to my maturation and my development. And a number of other persons were just in and around the Groseley field, that area, just ensuring that, you know, I stayed on that street and narrow. And so, you know, it was something that allowed me to explore the venue availability, allowed me to explore volleyball, which I played at the national level. It allowed me to explore, you know, of course, cricket, as you know, and football, and of course track and field. And so I really appreciate it. And that's why when they talk about the original of Groseley, you'll always find me smiling, because I'm a product of that community.
Quite a bit. All rounder. But quickly, why politics?
I think I grew up in a community that was close-knit, tight-knit, and when you grow up in a sporting culture, sporting background, you get to understand, especially if you're a national athlete, you gain something I call that is called social consciousness. You represent in St. Lucia, you're wearing the colors, and so you become aware of your responsibilities. And I remember being a member of Simpex Orion Football Club with Jennifer Gaston and the likes, you know, and then also being part of Groseley Community Action Group, which was a group that was under, you know, a drug-free club. And so at the end of the day, I became, you know, PRO and that sort of thing. And so you develop a level of social consciousness, and you start to see what is happening in your community. You are very aware of what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, and what should not be. And from a very early age, I always had that in me. And so when I went to Sir Arthur Lewis, I remember becoming president of the student council, winning handsomely in that election. And during that same time at Sir Arthur Lewis, persons were already engaging me on, you know, whether or not I would consider at that time contesting the Groseley seat. And I remember at that time telling them, no, not right now. There was so much that I wanted to accomplish. But they engaged me very early. And so being in a community that constantly puts it in your periphery, like you walk around and you can hear the talk. You can hear the talk that for a lot of people, it was people who know me as I'm growing up, it was only a matter of when. That was it. It was always when. And so some people who knew me only through sports, they were a bit surprised. They were like, "You're a sportscaster, that's all you can do." And you know, you heard the whispers. But the people who knew me growing up in Groseley, I mean, my family stretches from Grand Riviere to Marisil to Moshi and surrounding communities, knew that, you know, as a young person who always paid attention to what was going on and contributed to the community and always gave back to the community, establishing a Moshi United Football Club, PE teacher at the Groseley Prime and Infant School, and just continually sponsoring competitions for my small business, St. Lucia Sports Online at the time. Person saw in me somebody that is willing to sacrifice himself in the interest of the community.
Great. That's how should I put it? Quite a bit. But you're the minister responsible for youth development and sports. Quickly walk me through the ministry. I know you have a permanent secretary, a deputy permanent secretary, a sports director. In terms of youth and sports officers.
Yeah, the dynamics at the ministry, Mr. Duvoville, it's one that we have been from my first 3 months, and as a matter of fact, it was there before. We've been looking at the structure of the ministry, and that's a very important question that you're asking. My PS is Ms. Caroline Eugene. Of course, very competent, came from a background of sustainable development, understands young people. It's very important that you have a ministry and you have people that understand young people. Leota Shalmine Mason is a DPS from the Marisol community. Shout out Marisol, and lives in the Marisol community. Somebody who came from netball, understands sports administration, and then you have Patrick Maffrey, Poto. Has been there for years. And so the dynamics of the ministry, what has happened, the institutional knowledge, he really brings it to any discussion that we are going to have and that we have at the ministry. And then you have the youth and sport, you have the youth officers, and then you have the sports officers. And the sports officers have different roles. For instance, Dean McGlaw, for instance, Anthony Lamentine, Shem Maxwell, all have different roles, including coaching coordinators, elite athletes coordinators, and so you have different responsibilities. Now, we've been having thorough discussion on the actual structure of the ministry, because communications has been one of the areas for me, as somebody who has a master's in communication, I find has been lacking. And just last Friday, we were able to secure the services of a consultant within that communications department who's going to really be that bridge between the media, society, and of course the ministry, because we have a number of initiatives that we are going to undertake in the not too distant future, including rebranded Intersec competition that we have decided to call the Island Champs, and we're using a different structure in the coming year, a youth program for skills and job training, jobs, which comes under the Ministry of Youth. And of course the conversation continues on the sports academy and the direction that we are going to take as it pertains to that institution, and the St. Aquatic Center that has just gotten off the ground. We will be coming to those two aspects. Yes. So don't go hitting like Chris Gale. I'm patient. So in terms of the youth and sports officers, how many of them you have? Youth and sports officers in the ministry, I think we have about 8 of them. We don't have enough. Yeah. So the fact is we don't have enough. That means you have 8 regions. Yes. 8 regions. Yes. You see, the reason why I'm asking these questions is because the person on the outside will have a clearer picture of how the Ministry of Youth Development and Sport operates. Yes. Because people don't really know what's happening. Absolutely. People ask questions. The movie, I say, but I don't know myself. You understand? So now that I have you, so you can actually let them have a clearer picture, a clearer idea as to the ministry. It's a very interesting question, because and it's very important for people to understand that as well, because I remember I was youth and sports officer, and I was given responsibility for Soufre, Chozel, ancillary canneries, all the way to Castries South, Marigot. One person? One person. That was the responsibility given to me. Of course, a lot of it was, we knew exactly what happened. No, they were trying to frustrate you? Yeah, leading up to well, I mean, come out and say it straight. Yeah. I mean, there's no need to beat around the bush. Just say they were trying to frustrate you. That's all. For me, I did my best. I ensured that I did straightforward, Yeah. I did what I had to. And since then we've had a couple of Sarah Lee Williams in Grosley in the north, Babono Grosley, and you have Cliver's Jules on the east coast. You have Claude in the south. You have that's Claude Charlemagne. Claude Charlemagne in the south. And I said 8, but I'm struggling to get the 8 right now. But I just know way too few. For us to have a successful sports program nationally, but we have a number of coaches that are in the communities as well that have to provide services in the different sporting areas. Okay. But since assuming office, have you met with the various sporting organizations? No and yes. We inherited a dynamic where we had the absolute scourge of COVID-19 to first and foremost deal with, and it made physical meetings virtually impossible for a while. One could make the argument that you could have had virtual meetings and that sort of thing, but there was a dynamic that I inherited where you have the national authorities, which is the blood, the financing of the ministries of youth and sports, the programs. And I inherited a dynamic that should never ever happen again. You have national lotteries pretty much operating in a silo. A PS that was there that started about a year ago with, I would say, about 30 to 40% of the information on what actually happened in the ministry for the last 4-5 years. And so I found myself having to dig deep in getting, instead of having secondary information, in research you have primary information, which takes a long time because you're speaking to people individually. Instead of having the secondary information through files, through, records of what actually happened and that sort of thing, I found myself having a lot of individual meetings, meeting people just to, just to find out exactly what happened. And so I've had meetings with the department heads. For sure, we've had a few meetings just to chat the way forward. I met with the sports officers recently. I was invited to meet with youth workers in Dennery, which island-wide. All of them met in Dennery. And so there are a lot of coaches that have said, but I haven't met with you, and you haven't met with all the coaches and that sort of thing. But these things will happen because we need to, first and foremost, clean up some of the mess. I don't like operating in a place that appears messy. So there's been a lot of cleaning up and putting things together so that we can go through. And we're heading in that direction right now.
Okay. Interestingly, you said that. But the national lottery issue, I'll be coming to that in a while. Is there a sports policy?
There is. We have a draft.
A draft.
We have a draft.
And how long that has been on the back burner?
When I came into the ministry, there were a lot of consultation. We have people that have been meeting to have the actual policy put together in a way that that could be consumed by all of St. Lucia. I think on some level it is something that we've had different phases undertaken, different persons engaged. You've had a lot of the stakeholders engagements, the stakeholder engagement, so that we can get something that, at the end of the day is consumed by all of St. Lucia. And it is understood that this is the direction that we are going. I've seen some documents in terms of what the plans are. I can tell you there are a lot of things that I believe we should have done by now as a country. I think there are a lot of directions that I have suggested that we need to go right now, and I've seen some posts and that sort of things at other places. And I am excited to ensure that policies, that's one of the things that I've asked for very early. We are currently in an advanced stage of having a maintenance policy. Field maintenance policy, so you know exactly how fields are being maintained. And I made sure that within 100 days that we were off the bat, scoring in terms of ensuring that is done. That is an advanced stage, and we're expecting for that to be completed before January 1st. Naming rights policy, we're seeing different venues being named Vikivai, so we've been saying that we need to get more buy-in from corporate St. Lucia, so you don't have just a VG Sports Complex, but we can propose that for maintenance of a Flow VG Sports Complex, or a digital VG Sports Complex, or a Flow BIF Bosejo in the facility sponsored by Caribbean Metals, and then you give them the rights for that time and the understanding that you are the one maintaining that facility. And of course the different facilities around the island, this is the direction that we want to go. So we want to make sure that we have that naming rights policy in place, so we can head in that direction and ensure that the ministry is not continually just depending on lotteries to ensure that we continue to flourish.
And that will include the posters on the wall of the facilities as well.
Absolutely.
That will come with a cost.
Absolutely. So you're looking at VG Sports Complex.
Yeah.
I have spoken about fields in the Grosley constituency, such as Corinth, along a road. We should have a wall that we can actually have advertising space, so that you can maintain the Corinth playing field using those those finances, and you can actually have programs there. Similar Granivere along highway, ensure that we have those things there. And if at the end of the day, when we complete our facility in Granivere, and of course Corinth, that you have buy-in from corporate St. Lucia to actually, they want their name associated.
Yeah.
I mean, there are benefits from that. Every time you read a story, it will be, is at the digital Corinth playing field. You know, it's at the Caribbean Metals or at the Flow Granivere playing field, or the Sachiko Fiji Sports Complex. There is some benefit from corporate St. Lucia and of course the wider community from heading that direction, and that is one of the things that we've started to ensure that we put in place.
Great. As Minister responsible for sports in the country, what's your long-term strategy for sports in St. Lucia, if there is? I know normally there might be a short, medium, but in terms of the long term, and what are the key pillars you intend to work with?
Absolutely. First and foremost, you cannot develop sports if you don't have facilities. Secondly, you cannot develop sports if you do not have administrators. And you cannot develop sports if you do not have that level of unity of effort, which includes corporate St. Lucia, the ordinary citizen, which includes the parents, the media, and all other ancillary groups, ministries in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of planning, in terms of infrastructure. We cannot continue to develop sports in a silo. It will never work. We don't send an athlete or an athlete who gets a gold medal at Olympic. We don't necessarily say that that athlete win that gold medal. You'll hear that, but you'll hear St. Lucia has one gold medal. Like right now, you can say Grenada has a gold medal in the 400 meters in the sport of track and field.
Kimani.
Yeah, Kirani James. And so, to answer your question, we have to develop sports from the bottom up. We have to have a very comprehensive school sports program that is very inclusive, that gives the exposure to our athletes from primary school, infant school, kindergarten, into the secondary school and the tertiary level. And for me, inter-schools competitions at the secondary school level should be something where to compete you have to be at a certain standard. You want to have participation. When you're at primary school and infant school level, it's about the participation. But when you get to a secondary school level, 15, 16, 17, you cannot be at intersect for me, and you cannot reach a minimum standard of what the 100 meter is supposed to be for you to be competitive. So it cannot continue to be at that level about quantity, but it should be about quality. And so that is the direction we go into in the coming year that we'll have a discussion about. And so the proper facilities is where all of that is harnessed. So you must have a field maintenance policy that ensures that when weather permits, and even when there is bad weather, you have a sports development happening, not just 9 to 5, but 6, 7, 8 o'clock and beyond. That is very important for talent identification and for talent development. So you must have the facilities and you must have the policy that governs it. You must have administrators. St. Lucia is perhaps one of the only islands that, well, not perhaps one of the, there are a few islands that still have administrators that are burdened by being the only administrator, being chief cook, bottle washer, and tutbagai.
That's why I have grey hair.
Yes, I mean, that is true.
I'm born for that.
Yeah, and I mean, we cannot continue to develop sports, and this is what we have at a very critical level as it pertains to administration. So what I have been talking about is how do we incentivize? How do we as a government and the people incentivize persons to be administrators? You see my choice of words, incentivize.
Yeah.
Because as a ministry, we will not have money to pay the executive of the Grosley Football Association. But how do you incentivize them? And that is the important thing, because people are struggling. People have work. People have families. This is a modern era. When I hear people talk about, boy, in the 70s and 80s, you didn't have to pay anybody for anything, and right now everything is pay me. We have to start thinking of the incentive. I'm going to leave my home every afternoon to coach. every Saturday and Sunday to ensure that this athlete, gets the best that they can from me. And at the end of that, I'm still going to be the president, the vice president or something. And at the end of that, like for instance, a Chad Daisy, I'd still come and get on TV and get blasted by people who absolutely do nothing to engage the sport. Eventually, that administrator will push back. And so,
indeed,
incentivizing administrators has to be something that core pillar going forward for how we develop sports in communities. And I say incentivize. We have persons that have been coaches, that have been even journalists and coaches, doing things for donkey years. And do you know?
If it was only donkey.
Yeah, and do you know that if this individual wants to bring something that is sports related, duty free, or if they want to have, I don't want to go as far as a vehicle, but just for government to at least, give some form of incentive to that individual for their hard work. There's no structure for that yet that is in a comprehensive way that incentivizes administrators. And so that is one of the things that is critical to the development of sports in St. Lucia. And we keep speaking about a sports culture. And
we don't have a sports culture.
We don't, because at the end of the day, we play lip service to sports all the time.
We come into all that,
Yeah.
We come into all that because when you made that point a while ago, I look at my notes and I say, but you look like you're stretching your head on my notes.
Nah, man, I can't trust me. Anybody that knows me, I can't say nothing you have.
Yeah, because the next question I was going to ask you is whether there is a Sports Development Act. Now listen to me carefully. And I believe the time has come where the Ministry for Sports, along with the Ministry of Education, start realizing the importance of developing sports talent to produce champions in international sports events. That aspect would involve trained teachers and participation of infant and primary school students from year 1 to 5. That should expand the participation of new talent from as young as 7 years old who has a potential at the grassroots level, so they can be identified earlier and reduce the risk of dropout. I believe such program will help expand the participation of new talent from as young as 7 years old who have the potential at a grassroots level so they can be identified. We have young men and women reach the primary school level. They go into secondary, and that's it for them in sports. I've always said, Minister, I'm giving you that task. I know there was an MOU signed a few years with the former, not the former, but the one before, Sean Edwards, at the indoor facility with the Ministry of Education, and you can check for that MOU. I believe now it's supposed to be a wedding between the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Sports to ensure that the money spent on those young people, St. Lucia, will benefit way past secondary school level.
It's interesting that you bring this up, because if you look at the history of sports in St. Lucia, and if you look at, even in terms of, if you look recently, St. Lucia has done very well in sports at the youth level. And for some reason, once they get past 18, 19, 20, 21, we've only had perhaps 3 or 4 instances of individuals becoming world class.
Yeah.
So that says all you need to know about the facilities we have here, the culture we have here, and the development program that we have here. Because it does not go beyond. We have a national team. Let's just take football, for instance. We were pretty much minutes away from breaking into the next round at that CONCACAF level. And of course, the talent on that team has been one that has been spoken about since 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is the generation that we're expecting to break into, to do something for St. Lucia. But it almost seems as if the older they get, the less the chances of developing into world-class athletes. And the question is why, and I'm going to address that a little bit later when we speak about.
And not only that, not only football, you see in cricket, you see the under 15 cricketers perform outstandingly
Yeah,
at the
as a youth level.
Windward level, under 19, and you put them into the senior team, and we have issues, we just can't seem to get it right when they have gotten into the senior.
And you said something earlier that was very interesting.
You know.
St. Lucia's golden, I would say, era of sports development seemed to have come when we had a minister for youth development, sports and education in one ministry. Mary Michelle benefited from having Unesile as, first of all, I must say, director of sports, Armstrong Alexis, who was Dr. Armstrong Alexis.
Yeah.
I started with him, then Unesile, Dr. Unesile in sports, and then Dr. Didikos Jules. These were the people that were charged with the responsibility of developing education,
And sports.
human resource development,
Yeah.
and sports. And so you had Laverne Spencer come out of that era in terms of the actual development of and the maturation of Laverne Spencer. You had Darren Sammy come out from that youth to that development area. And then later you had Gary Maffrey. And there was a time Sojo Fede was on the fringes.
Yeah.
And so we had a number of athletes that were doing very well, because sports operated in a silo cannot develop. And I will say this again, it cannot happen if it is just sports. It has to be buy-in from different stakeholders to ensure that it is propelled in the right direction. And so having an MOU would be just a start if we're serious about developing sports.
Honorable Minister, I want to tell you, you see what I just said there about from the infant level and even in the kindergarten level, because we take these things for a joke, and that's why I love the Czech Republic, you know. I communist, I just say how it is. I love the Czech, how they deal with the sports people from that age, 3, 4, 5. But here we say in infant school, you know. But we need to take it a little further down the age bracket and start to develop our athletes and ensure that they are world class. But let me tell you, any plan to formulate a national sport industry action plan to make sports a new source of economic growth? Because you state in the ARC. The ARC is the biggest sports income for St. Lucia. Because the reason why I'm saying that, Honorable Minister, I believe we need to aim to make sport a new source of generating the country's economic growth in line with development at a global level. Just recently, the president of the Caribbean Association of National Olympic Committee, CANOC, Brian Lewis, said many sports leaders still treat the $600 billion global sports industry as leisure.
Absolutely. Very, very good question. And I've been hesitating to delve into what some of the plans are for the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, but in answering that question, I am forced to indirectly to delve into that. And again, as I've said again, sports cannot continue to operate as something that is not just leisure, but in a silo, and it can develop itself. We've spoken a lot about a youth economy over the last year and a half, 18 months, and 2 years. The Prime Minister have mentioned the development of a youth economy, and when people hear of the youth economy, a lot of them do not gravitate towards how sports becomes a very critical aspect of how we develop a youth economy. And I will start by looking at sports on our shores. I've been ridiculed, of course, I was ridiculed by my predecessor for speaking of aqua action and that sort of thing. And I mean, I took it on the chin, but I knew exactly what the vision is. We have right now the potential to, first and foremost, have at least some form of schooling and training for individuals in yachting, for individuals in sailing, in just everything to do with a blue economy. And up to this day, we've not established a curriculum or something that is substantial using our shores that can cause persons to now gain sustainable employment in the sea. We have a tourism product that brings so many people to our shores. And I've always said the Ark, yachting, is the biggest contributor, and the potential for this to multiply and blossom into something is so much more if we pay attention and we invest in it.
Indeed.
We have the potential for us to use our waters to attract persons from the Russia, from areas in Europe, Russia, Germany, England, these individuals that love competitions on the water, that wouldn't mind sponsoring a program, say for instance at the Grosley HRTC, in really coaching, training along our shores. I remember Urban Augustine from Grosley was one of those who were propelling and preaching, let's train individuals to swim and have competition using our shores. And so if we're serious about the youth economy, that is one of the areas that we can tap into. Coaches, administrators, sports nutritionists, persons involved in sports medicine, all of these are areas that sports can provide sustainable employment. That is why I will go into what we've seen at the Sports Academy right now. First and foremost, I do not have a problem necessarily with the entirety of what we have as a Sports Academy. But as I said in my presentation, if we are going to have a Sports Academy, it is important that if we are going to engage young men and women that are sport-oriented, to at least upon graduation have some certification in a sports-related field, because that is how you build the economy of sports. So you have a Sports Academy right now that at the end of the day you graduate with CXCs. I've never said that is a bad thing. I've never said that. What I have said is within those 5 years, we should engage, whether it's WICB or Cricket Australia, for some online program for our students who are involved in sports to decide during their maturation whether or not I want to do a coaching program and get certification, whether or not I want to do a health and fitness program and gain certification, whether or not I want to do something in basic sports injury and get a certification. So at the end of the day, you leave with your CXCs, but you leave with at least, the very least, a foundation for you to gravitate towards a sports area. Now that is how the sports economy is built. You have that level of certification. The responsibility is on you now as an individual when you graduate and you leave, for you to develop it so that you can decide whether or not you want to be a sports journalist like Anthony de Beauville. You are good at writing and sports, but you finish with a certification in basic sports journalism, whether you did it online. So at the end of the day, while you finish your CXCs and you're doing something that is academic purely, you can decide, I'm sending to The Voice, I'm sending to Anthony de Beauville a story that I saw when I went to the Grosley playing field and saw Moshi play Northern United. And so you start developing yourself from there, because you have that basic certification from the Sports Academy. And then from there, you can decide, hey, Anthony Bouville, no matter what, he can't do it for the rest of his life.
No, not at all.
He cannot.
No.
I am going to develop something using modern technology, using that to further develop myself. And that is how I get paid as a sports journalist. The same thing with injuries. We've had issues with injuries for time immemorial in St. Lucia. Young people with talent get injured at 17, 18, and that's it. And so there's not been enough focus on all those things to ensure that we drive a sports economy. I have said that right now the facility is there, and there are a number of things that we've not gravitated to as an island that could ensure we have sustainable development in sports. Sports medicine, sports science, sports nutrition, sports psychology, sports administration, and a number of other areas.
Interestingly, you mentioned the sports administration, and that's why we're lacking. And that's why what you see at the national level with some of the national federations, the leadership abilities, you can throw that through the window. It's nothing to talk about. I've just been honest in St. Lucia. Out of 21 national NFs on island, in terms of leadership, y'all don't know what I want to say.
We don't, so you say it.
Yeah. Now seriously, in terms of leadership, and Alfred now is president of the SLOC, trust me, he'll be on the heels to ensure that those lacking behind and failing to have one event for a year, or even during the term in office, that nonsense will stop. Trust me on that one. Because Alfred is a no-nonsense fella. And so, the thing that you want to introduce or bring into the sports academy, is it been challenged or?
Of course, everything you do, you will get challenges. Of course, certain individuals have seen when people come with their ambitions and they've put some effort into a particular program, particular dynamic, persons would say, oh, but what you're saying there is nothing new and that sort of thing. And I have to say, pause. Let's take a couple steps back. What we have seen from a sports academy is a huge facility. There's a lot of space there that is untapped in, where young sportsmen and women, they go in there, they eventually do CXCs, like what operates at different schools. The difference that you see there is a few sports, and I say a few, very few, football, cricket, on a smaller scale, track and field, a very small scale, track and field. They camp and they leave on the weekend. There's a lot of money invested in terms of feeding these athletes during the week. And for me, I believe, and I have my conviction, that if we look at developing the sports in a nation, a small island, that we should go in a different direction. There is enough space at the current sports academy, and first and foremost, let me just explain. The proposal is not to just out anybody. We can absorb the current students that are at the sports academy back into the school system. It's been done before. The current teachers back into the system. It's been done before. Those with the ability in terms of teaching, coaching, we can keep. The idea is, after absorbing these people, we have a focus on the science of sports. We have not gravitated to what is done in any country that has developed sports. We are in the scientific era, and we don't have a sports science lab.
That's why Western is lost, you know.
Exactly. But I'm telling you, we don't, one of the first buildings that I want, one of them, is a sports science center, where you can check the ladies' hemoglobin, your weight, your height, your body mass index. All of those things affect your performance. Mental strength, you have a psychologist, a few of them. You have psychological evaluation before, psychological evaluation after. St. Lucia sent some young men overseas a week ago. They came back this week. These young men played brilliant. They played good football.
Oh, yeah.
And then they lost at the end, and they didn't even lose. They drew the game. Last minute. These individuals are back in St. Lucia, and all these young individuals have is, Pastor, that happened and that happened. There is no psychological evaluation to actually have these individuals sit down and evaluate mentally.
Trust me.
Come to terms with what happened.
Trust me.
And then move on.
Mr. Minister, trust me. You see what you're saying there? This is going to live with these young footballers for the rest of their life.
So close.
If no one take care of that aspect of it, you know.
And not just anyone, because they will have conversation. You will have Lyndon Cooper bring together a couple of people, you'll sit down and, no. I am talking about in a modern era. Before they left, all of these footballers' mental strength should have been evaluated, and of course, whatever needed to be done should have been done to get them mentally prepared for this competition. Because from all indications, this was a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And then at the end, once they come back, we should have a system in place to ensure that there is a mental evaluation of those athletes. So, medical consultations. I said earlier that athletes get injured at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and that's it, because we do not have a facility that is targeted at dealing with sports injuries, MRI machines and all that sort of thing, so you can actually have it. Been speaking to the Cuban ambassador, and of course we will be taking a trip to Cuba very soon, so we can see how we can engage them to really help us with this sports science. Other things, sports nutrition, of course I said rehabilitation, chemical laboratory, stomatology, the pharmacy, supplementation, and in addition to that, a high performance center. All of this is available at that place. The other thing that we really want to get done before your next question
Oh, you know, have another one?
Yeah. We do not have, and we spoke about administration very early and how important administration is. We need to have a secretariat and space for all our sports organizations to be able to either retreat or have an office space to deal with the issues of managing their sporting organization. And I think that is just some of what we want to do.
I just want to close that chapter.
There's so much more, yeah, but
I know,
close it for now.
with what Brian Lewis said.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finish reading what he said, I have a comment to make. Where is it? Lewis went on to say, a lot of policy makers and decision makers at the political level throughout the region taking sports seriously, but they don't act it. That's one. Two, they don't treat conversations with sports like how they do when they talk about oil and energy, technology, and health and education. And we all know that has been historical because sports has always taken the back seat. With what you just said, I want to say, as a former marathoner, former coach, athlete, yeah, who have dealt with numerous athletes over the years, now journalists, former administrator, I recommend those points that you just put on there. Mm-hmm. And I simply hope those persons on the outside will do likewise. I've never ever heard this before from a minister of government. And St. Lucia, regardless of what color, pink, yellow, black, red, you need to support that. We need to support it for our young people going forward. After 42 years of independence, sports science, take it and run.
Can you imagine when an athlete, the likes of Gillian Alfred, comes back to St. Lucia? We don't have a gym that is athlete-centered that she can go to. We have something at the Mindoville Park. I've seen the videos and that sort of thing. But we don't have a state-of-the-art facility that is set for high-performance athletes. And we have the space to do it. It's 2021. We're about to be in 2022. We do not measure, and that should be done at the community level, somebody's body mass index in a scientific way that can tell this individual 4 months before competition, this is your weight you should be, based on your height, and this is the nutritional plan that you should follow if you are serious about performing at a high level. We don't have that, and we have a sports academy.
I've always said, St. Lucia, we are cut above the rest, but once we get it right,
yeah,
the mighty America and China and Japan and Canada and France, when it comes to major or global events, we can give them a run for every cent that we have in our pocket. But let me ask you, but quickly you can just comment on that. Are you going to continue with projects already started in terms of the last administration? Remember Lockerbie, our good friend?
There are certain things that I thought should have been done very, very early.
Yeah.
The previous minister under the Labour Party government, Sean Edward, had a groundbreaking ceremony, a sword-turning ceremony for the National Aquatic Centre. And it's heartbreaking that 5 years after, $42 million spent, that the sport of swimming, which I consider to be the maths and English, track and field swimming, maths and English are sports development. Once you start in an island developing swimming and track and field, you will go very, 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 very far. And swimming up to a day did not have a 50-meter pool. And we know, you mentioned the ARC being a huge income earner. After the ARC in St. Lucia, swimming will be the sport that brings the most economic development in sports in St. Lucia. Modern cricket, modern football. We are down to host Sisikan.
Yeah.
We are expecting more than 1,200 athletes. That alone is going to fill up our hotels up north. In swimming, most athletes travel with at least 2 coaches. So that's another 1,000. And then in swimming, parents are the best travelers in a sport of swimming. That is where you get the most traveling.
Seriously, no?
So when you have a Sisikan you have a Carifta Championship in St. Lucia, and you continue to have the ability to host colleges and universities. Here's the other thing. When you have a North America in terms of Canada and the US, with frozen pools in the winter, these individuals look to the Caribbean for short stints of vacation and where they can practice. So swimming gives them that ideal location to travel with their clubs, with their groups, get a hotel, get some sun, and still train. So the economic development that is from swimming is tremendous. And so one of the first things that I did as a Minister for Sports was to reevaluate the finances of NLA, find the funding for the construction of the National Aquatic Center. But we've cleared the land, and this is on stream right now.
So how soon you expect work to commence?
Well, we've already started clearing. So we have an issue with the supply side. The supply side in terms of things coming into St. Lucia, in and out of St. Lucia. So the contractor is having a number of issues. Okay. And of course, NLA has had some very tough financial times. I mean, NLA would rake in a couple million, 1.5, and of course the advent of COVID-19 brought it down to under $1 million. And so, you know, the actual the financial flow, and for the last 3 years we did not have any income statements, any accounting statements from NLA, and the bank requires that to move expeditedly financially. And so we're dealing with all of that right now, and the full construction is expected to really get underway in December, January, so that we can host Sisikan and Carifta in 2023.
What's the latest on Minder Phillip Park and Masha Grounds?
Oh, Minder Phillip Park and
some of the eyesore in terms of other sporting facilities on the island?
Again, for me, Minder Phillip Park and Masha, these are two areas that must be given full attention. I got a letter officially from the new SSI board regarding their evaluation of the Minder Phillip Park especially. The reports are just not good. And so, again, fiscal space, what we inherited, once the finances become available, we need to have a second cricket stadium in St. Lucia that is well equipped, that could meet regional standards, international standards. And so the idea is to definitely get the Minder Phillip Park and the Masha grounds equipped. And with Masha, we're looking at moving into solar lighting, and we're looking at solar lighting for facilities as well. Okay. I've met with some individuals that are very passionate about, and for me, I said earlier, beyond 6 o'clock, you need to have sports development, and we have seen some proposals where the battery is charged during the day, and between 6 and 12 you have free lighting pretty much. Okay. And that is where we're moving in places like Masha, where we know we have a lot of footballers, a lot of athletes, Grosley, the Mapia Valley, View Fort, and Labrie has not been given the attention that Labrie should be getting as it pertains to sports in terms of lighting, facilities, and that sort of thing.
And the George Odlum Stadium?
The George Odlum Stadium is one that I'm very passionate about. The George Odlum Stadium, and every time we visit, we do anything with Ministry of Health, and that's why I say we can't operate in silos. St. Lucia cannot operate in silos. We have a medical situation that has caused our sporting facility to be in disrepair. Not just a medical situation, but of course poor management, no maintenance policy, no maintenance plan, no maintenance management as part of that as well. You have to add all of that into the mix, but the situation is such that for at least the next year, 6 months, we are expecting for the facility to still be used by the Ministry of Health to house the hospital. Once that is moved to the wing that the Labour Party started and was 90% complete, then we can start looking at the financing to ensure that the George Odlum Stadium is given all the attention that it deserves, so that it can get back to better than it was before St. Jude's came in.
Okay. In terms of, let me see, the playing courts and thing, especially for Grosley, what's in store for your area, Grosley?
Grosley playing.
Are you looking for like a mini stadium? I mean, I've been honest with you. If I'm minister for Grosley, I'll ensure my legacy will stay behind by giving Grosley a mini stadium, a small mini stadium.
As a regional individual from Grosley, I can tell you, here's the plan. And I've been speaking with my team. I've engaged a couple of individuals to get the costing for pedestrianizing that area. And when I say pedestrianizing, we're looking at between, once you come up the first speed hump on the main road and you swing into the school and HRDC, that is a cut-off area. Only pedestrians are allowed to go in there. And then there's an area called the Monkwa, which is by the school, the cross is. So you pedestrianize, you cross off there, only walking. And then close to the cemetery coming in, you block off. And so that area, no vehicular traffic. And the plan is for the actual pavilion to be exactly where the road is. So you would have some space, that road would be taken off, and so you would have some more space for cricket and the football. And that side where the main road is, onto the Monkwa, is where you would have the sitting area for that area, because you've not had a sitting area with a pavilion in Grosley from time immemorial. That is sad. The court currently where it is may have to move to the other side, next to the school. And so you would have cricket and football in that area.
Okay.
The plan is to have both cricket and football available for Grosley town. And so at the end of the day, that area would have a buzz of activities. You'd have a gym, currently where the old community center is, in terms of that pavilion, a place to work out, boxing. I've spoken to David Chicks Christopher about a boxing program there. We still have space for table tennis, for some of these other sports. You want individuals to come into that pedestrian area and really congregate and do something in sports, youth development, and that sort of thing. Corinth, we've secured the lights for the Corinth playing field. It is purely because of the actual dollars and cents adding up yet that we've not started installing that light at the Corinth playing field. You know very well that sporting organizations use that Corinth playing field for competitions, for training development programs for years, and it's an absolute indictment that that playing field does not have lights. And we've secured the lights, and this is an area that for sure pavilion works and lights are very important for that area. Moshi as well?
Moshi. And Groivia.
Moshi and Granny. These are the four areas that after my tenure as Minister for Youth Development and Sports, I want proper lighting and of course to have lots of sporting development and programs.
But the biggest issue which stares in the face is the issue of vandalism. And I simply hope those involved in such act will desist from destroying, because at the end of the day, like one person said some time ago, you don't see a minister of government playing any football, basketball, you know. They build it. It's our taxpayers' money and friendly governments who come out there and assist us. But yet still we go out there. I say we because I live here. I live on the rock. All right? We go out there and we destroy it. And then government have to find monies. That same money, you could have done something else with it. But I have to take that money now and try and repair. Maybe for a national tournament, use that facility for a training venue for an international event. St. Lucia, it don't work that way, you know. We need to stop our stupidity. No, I mean honest with you. I honest, you know. I'm very honest. I am sick and tired in the way we go on destroying sporting facilities in the country. You know, and it's like, we don't care, it's government build it. No, it's not government build it. Most times it's our taxpayers' money. You all know how many people that lost their jobs and governments have to find monies to do things for us? Come on, let's get serious, man. After 42 years of independence, right? We go down 43. We must remember that. We have to remember that, man. We have to respect that. But let me tell you, you a sportscaster, now a minister, but on the outside we used to have our chit chat. And you saw the club structure. For me, certain clubs up there and other clubs at the bottom. For me, some of them were like I saw. What is it that your ministry will be doing to assist? Any plans in that area? For example, helping clubs examine how they operate and supporting them to build or improve capacity? Here's
my thing. Again, I was educated in the US, and so I saw a lot of what was happening in the first world and what worked, what did not work. We officially have, right now as we currently speak, 17 what we call constituencies. And we have a club system that for me is not financially prudent. It does not bring in the economic aspect per se into the sports development. We have facilities in most of those communities that are not they are not set up in a way that brings in the finances that those sports would want to bring to sustain themselves. I've had conversations with different individuals from different backgrounds that have spoken about the club system. And if you look at a club, a basic club in a third world country, not a third world, but let's just look at an average, a mid-range community or constituency, you would have clubs that would have a fan base of basic 20,000 people. Our clubs in St. Lucia, they would have a fan base of actual fanatics. I'm talking about fans that are fanatics. They wear the colors, they wear everything, they follow what's going on. Currently about 5 or 6, sometimes 10 people that you can say actively follow a club. I'm not talking about the coaches and the team players, but actively fanatics. Clubs can't develop that way, boss. You need to have a club structure. For instance, Grosley, or let's just look at Central Castries. We have to move in a direction, I believe, that is me. Again, I'm not saying that this is any policy decision that has been made, where Central Castries should be able to function as a club. They would have, therefore, a number of people that they can gravitate towards in terms of being, first and foremost, members of that club. They can decide that they are having a particular color that they have chosen to be the color for that club. And so now they can start merchandising. Can you imagine, let's just say Northern United from Grosley, deciding that they are going to sell merchandises? They're not going to sell more than 20, they're not going to sell 100 shirts. They're not going to sell 200. But when you look at if it is structured in a way that it appeals to a wider population, then you can have a significant number of persons that you can tap into as your fans. The fans are a huge part of sports development, and that's the thing that is underrepresented, undersaid. So when you look at, again, a Central Castries, you should be able to have competitions that represent, that they can come in as Central Castries, not just district, because I mean it's a different dynamic. Don't call it a district. If you can formulate it in a way that it's a club with membership, and then you look at netball being part of that club, you have basketball, you have football, cricket. I mean, then you start expanding your scope. Then you start expanding your perspective, your financial ability, your ability to raise finances. Then you get, more fanaticism. Then you get more corporate buy-in. So when we're talking about the club structure and what has happened over in the 1990s and 1980s, you used to see all that happen and that sort of thing. We've modernized, we've gone into a different era. And just continue the club structure as is currently oriented will keep us having the same results.
Oh yeah, I've been honest with you on this one, because let me tell you, it's not that I saw, but it's just that how we operate, and I simply hope under your watch we will move from point A to point B, and then St. Lucia will see, or the world will see, where we're heading. Because it's aching inside when I see certain things,
Yeah.
in terms of sports.
I can imagine.
But how you intend to work closely, how you intend to work as government, your ministry, because I've had the former president, Richard Peter King, and then the recently outgoing president, Fortuna Belrose, in terms of that government has never really given them any finance, which I have no idea, but they have always said that government always talk.
Yeah.
But government, how you intend to work with the new executive of the SLOC?
Well, we always understand that organizations such as the SLOC and the other federations and associations, they are apolitical, and the overall governing, the global governing body does not really promote any governmental interference except for anyone money. And that's the fact,
yeah.
Except for when they want the facility that is owned and managed by government, except that. It's a two-way stream. The current, the new executive of the SLOC, let me first and foremost say congratulations to Mr. Emmanuel and his team for winning in convincing fashion. I look forward to working with them.
Yeah.
I think a number of the initiatives that I have in mind, for instance, the rebranding of Intersec. I had a conversation with Alfred Emmanuel today. I'm aware that he's leaving tomorrow for the Pan American Games in Colombia. I will be meeting him there later on this week as well. And the ministry has decided to rebrand and rename the Island Champs and make it an event that every final Sunday in March, we know we are having the Island Champs. And you've heard me say Sunday.
Yeah. It was time, you know. I've been honest with you. So persons wouldn't want the beach anymore. They'll come watch sports.
Exactly. The ministry, of course, is going to write formally to the Cabinet of Ministers and the Prime Minister to make this Sunday and the Island Champs a national event, which means that the Cabinet of Ministers and everybody involved will be invited to be at the stadium that is hosting the Island Champs, the finals. It's going to be a final, so the Sunday evening event into the night is going to be straight finals. So it's the finals of the 100 meters in junior, intermediate, senior, final of the 200 meters, final of the 400, straight exciting final in everything. Of course, Laverne Spencer is retired, and we want to continue to have a legacy for the high jump competition that we are going to have during that final for everybody to see. Of course, 4x4, 4x100 meters in the evening time, you know. And what we've built it as is a family and a national event. So you have the northern, you have the southern qualifiers during the week at a different point in time, and you have a week break, and then you have the final on a Sunday evening. And so the Olympic Committee is a committee, and of course the St. Lucia Athletics Association are two entities that are critical, and of course the Ministry of Education, in terms of buy-in for an activity. So I've mentioned just briefly to the current president that I would want to meet with him so that we can see how we can have this symbiotic relationship and ensure that, you know, there's buy-in from all stakeholders and support with the ministry, and if they want to bring in a Kakada too, we'll gladly, you know, help out with everything that we want to do. And so I'm saying this to say that the work with the new Olympic Committee is something that it has to be back and forth. The engagement in terms of the vision for the ministry, the high performance center at the sports village that are proposed, we expect and we want a lot of buy-in, because we want the Olympic level individuals and prospects to have a state-of-the-art gym with state-of-the-art coaches, with state-of-the-art doctors and psychologists, and these individuals in and around them. When Gillian Alfred comes down during the summer for 3 months, she's supposed to have a facility that lends support to her being a professional. And so we would want the Olympic committees buy-in and support and whatever they can bring in as well to that. And so for the others, the basketballers, the footballers, the swimmers, and all these individuals, we want them to be able to tap into the very best. And so the associations and all these individuals have to be on board.
Great. Karate. In June, we had one rep, that's Kareem Sifley, who represented St. Lucia. Olympic qualifiers, he didn't make it. Yeah. I think he's on his way back from Dubai, from the World Champs. Yeah, today's the 19th. Yeah, so he's on his way back now. Karate needed a place to establish a state-of-the-art national training facility. Will your ministry support such a venture by acquiring Crongland or a building in one of the industrial zones in the industrial zone in the north? We have observed that a few buildings are abandoned. That's Karate.
Okay, here's my thing. Again, when you are somebody who grew up in a community where everything was there and available to you. I grew up knowing that the community center, where you still have the post office in Grosley, upstairs, was an area for young people to be part of from a very early age and to learn the discipline of karate, the absolute discipline. Another sport that promotes a lot of self-control and discipline and mental strength is boxing. And so for me, these two associations, they've not received the amount of support I believe they should. A lot of it may have to be with them coming up and ensuring that it's not just a 1 or 2 man show, but they can show slate in terms of organizing themselves. And again, the facility in Beauséjour may be another option that may not cost the government the additional finances that we just really do not have right now to get a building, but at least an area that is dedicated to them for their training program. And of course, we can have discussions going forward once we are in a better fiscal space, Mr. Duboville, on whether we can afford to finance their training at one of the other buildings.
Ezra Jean-Baptiste is the president, and I know he's listening, and many other Karawatikers.
Good man.
But
He
what
had a good program
incentives?
locally.
What incentives you intend to put in place to enable the federation to obtain uniforms, training equipment, mats, to boost up karate in schools and other established karate organizations?
I personally will be very honest with everybody who is listening, including Ezra Jean-Baptiste, who is somebody I respect very much, and I know his love and his passion.
Dr. Ezra Jean-Baptiste.
Doc.
You know.
This is really, it's not a chicken and egg question, but it's really a question of the results justifying, not just the results. I don't believe necessarily that the ministry needs to be the one to initiate to get the school's program in karate off the ground. I believe the federation, the association, they need to take the initiative, and I can tell them that they will receive support from me as a minister, because I believe a lot of the social issues we have in our communities is because of the absence of sports such as karate and self-defense that actually teaches and builds the holistic individual. There are some sports like football, they would boast that they have some of the field sort of programs. But from day one with a sport like karate, there's an element of discipline, self-control, and that sort of thing that is taught, that we as a nation that is dealing with this scourge of crime should definitely gravitate to and finance. So for me, the long and short of it is, the association should really, and I believe they are, put things together to ensure that once we get back to normal, we are heading in that direction. They put a comprehensive program together to penetrate the schools. Once you have the justification of numbers, when one person shouting is not as effective as
I know for a fact that karate, they have numbers.
Well, they need to make more noise.
Yeah.
I know Kareem is very serious. Of course, he's one of the individuals that I know he trains very hard.
Oliver Lawrence and these persons.
Yes, they've had different factions. I can tell you, from being in the media, you would hear the different stories. But organize as a governing body and really go forward and make a case. Continue. They're not like they haven't, but continue to make a case with this new dispensation on getting the level of support that they deserve. And I would definitely support once we can start seeing, well, not start seeing, I know very well the impact it can have on not just the sport, but society as a whole. But
there's another interesting question. Would your department be willing to explore the possibility of securing karate scholarships for young elite athletes?
Again, when we spoke earlier about the Sports Academy versus Sports Village and development, that is the other sort of issue. Not issue, but sort of qualm that I've had with, the establishment of the Sports Academy. Under the previous Labour Party government, there was some effort to have a scholarship desk. I thought at the end of the day that with a little more planning and thinking and incentive, it could have worked. And I believe right now, 10 years removed, it is the opportune time to establish, as part of that venue, a scholarship desk or department. And the incentive is really on the individuals that are working there getting some compensation based on the number of athletes that they actually gain scholarships for. If you are going to just pay somebody to sit at the desk and seek scholarships, and they have a stable pay of $4,000 every month, $3,000 every month, the incentive is there. They get paid. But to actually get the result that you want, you have to start exploring whether or not this person gets paid based on the level of connections that they develop, the persons, the athletes that are going out, so as to give them that extra impetus to really develop relationships with colleges and schools. And so it would not necessarily be that karate specifically is saying, as minister, come up with a way to get more scholarship. But it will be a comprehensive plan that everybody, whether it is swimming, whether it is karate, whether it is boxing, that there is a department that is focused and financed in a very strategic way to ensure the athletes that have the potential. That's the other problem. SATs, ACTs, for 5 years at a sports academy, you cannot tell me that you wrote SATs or ACTs once during that 5-year period. You had to have had a program that really focuses on that, so that once you get to Form 4, you're at a stage where we know what you've been doing, we know what your grades are, we know what your ACTs or SAT scores are, where they should be, so that we can provide you with that additional thrust to ensure that you get a scholarship.
Great. But do you think St. Lucia needs a sports commission with the mandate to mobilize resources that will help to enhance the sports sector as a whole?
A sports commission would work. I do not believe in a voluntary sports commission. I will tell you straight.
Okay.
I believe in a sports commission that is financed. I believe that you need to hire and fire, clear terms of references, and if you're not doing the job, you move on. I believe that there is a lot of benefit to doing it that way. It has to be result-oriented, and of course the TRRs, the terms of reference, would tell you specifically what your goals, your targets are. I believe at the end of the day, you need to continue have an organization that have clear KPIs, key performance indicators at different stages that you can monitor, you can evaluate. And once it's done in that way that is targeted, strategic, and once the finances are there to get it properly done, instituted, it can work.
Have you realized we have been to the Olympic on 7 occasions, from 1996 to 2021, well, 2020, so they say 2021, right? 7 times. And the sporting disciplines that has represented St. Lucia, sailing, swimming, track and field. I'm right? Yeah. Sailing, swimming, track and field.
Yeah.
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 And 30 odd athletes. Lovan 4 times, Dominic 3 times, and the list go on. Zephyrus Joseph 1. 21 sporting national federations. Listen to me. 21 sporting national federation. And out of that 21 sporting national federation, only 3.
And how many of them have actually qualified?
You know why? Because I believe the other sporting organizations, they're just taking it as, like we said earlier, leisure.
Yeah.
So those sports, they don't really attract people. Can you imagine? You have crossover athletes from netball. Netball is not an Olympic sport, but it's a Commonwealth Games sport. Person from netball, they have now moved to rugby. All right. Any plans to develop other sports such as water polo, artistic swimming, hockey and skateboarding?
And many more.
And many more.
Yeah.
Little Barbados, 38 National Sporting Association. Sometime in August, cricket and skateboarding came into the fold. Can you imagine cricket and skateboarding into the Barbados fold? And I can recall in 2018, 2019, 2018, Chadwicks had a major skateboard tournament or competition in St. Lucia, where he brought down a number of Americans, and that event took place from the Boacache Gap to the bottom of the bridge.
Yeah.
Of course, we have people here, I believe, can represent us as skateboarding. If we cannot win it in track and field, swimming and thing, we have to look otherwise. Your thought on that?
We have to explore, and
Yeah.
I remember during my campaign, I made mention of the fact that we have a number of athletes. They are very athletic and they often feel forced into football, basketball, track and field, and if you don't make it there, you cannot make it. And we really don't have facilities for I know skateboarders. I've met with some of them that have been using the abandoned, now no longer abandoned, Bois Mall to practice their trade. Of course, they are vilified for being on the streets a lot of the time. I remember having conversations with some of the young men, and I say to them, we need to identify somewhere for y'all. I am one of those that have been disappointed with the fact that by now we should have had a medal. And of course, there have been many discussions about which sport would provide that medal. And swimming was one of the sports that often come up. And then you look at, okay, who has actually qualified or who has been invited? And then you ask yourself, what has to happen? Water polo, I've had discussions about.
Water polo.
But water polo, synchronized swimming, and of course, all of those things with a National Aquatic Center is something that could yield those benefits for us. But it is not enough to have the center. You must have the coaching, you must have the science, and you must have the will and the talent to get it done. And I've looked at beach volleyball. We've done very well we've done well in beach volleyball 3-on-3. Do we need to have beach volleyball at the school level? Do we need to go to a beach to have beach volleyball? No. You just need a sand pit, and you just need an area and a net. Relatively cheap, and that's one of the disappointments I've had, is we've said COVID and social distancing, but some of those sports that don't require a large amount of people and physical play, we could have invested in, and we still can. And so I definitely believe that we need to look at alternative sports. We've had a medal in beach football.
Yeah.
I think it was at a Commonwealth level goal, and we've not had the investment in beach football that we should have had by now.
And the thing is that they said that the coach Ferris, they call him Ferris, Ferris from Jivot. He's no longer in St. Lucia, he's somewhere in the States. So, I mean, and
that was St. Rose, right?
St. Rose. And the SLFA, they had some FIFA coach here training coaches for football, beach football.
Beach football. Yeah.
So, where's the nucleus of that team of coaches that will train on the FIFA? Well, you can't depend on one person.
I can say, as a minister for youth and sports development, identifying the actual sports and facilities for beach football would be one of those things that I will be looking into. And again, school level development and the development in the communities. And I've said to the Football Association in Grosley that I would want to have 3 competitions in Grosley. I want to have a futsal competition annually. I want to have a normal football competition annually. And I'd want to have a beach football competition annually. So again, finances permitting, I believe at the end of the day that there's enough of a corporate sector in Grosley to execute and get things done. And that is the plan going forward.
I have something very dear to my heart as I close, because I've gone over time. I think my
and I thought we would have had a break in between. My foot has been dry.
But it was so interesting. I think my producer Brendan has given me a little leeway to, But I call that beyond podium into retirement. And listen to me carefully, Honourable Minister, because I would like you to whisper it the next time you go to Cabinet or to Parliament and tell your minister, your other colleagues in there, what I'm about to tell you. You are aware of Luvan's retirement a few days ago. You're aware of that, right?
Absolutely.
What are government plans for her? And how will the Cabinet of Ministers view her accomplishment?
I can say that what I'm permitted to say is that we have had the discussion at the cabinet level. You would not have me as a Minister of Youth and Sport and be part of a cabinet that did not, as a matter of fact, the MP for Virginia Albert Poyet would not allow for there to be a retirement of Laverne Spencer to go unheeded. And I sit in a cabinet that features the likes of Sean Edward, as a Minister of Sport. And I feature in cabinet Dr. Ernest Hilaire, former PS in sports. And I can say that, of course, the preliminary discussions has been on the next independence celebration that we have a few months, 2 months away, in terms of doing something that is substantial and significant to honor her legacy, something that my twin girls who are now 7 can see in a not too distant future and know and understand that this is Laverne Donald Spencer, who spent above 20 years, almost 23
years
representing us at the national level. And so this is the individual, and who this individual is to us, and beyond retirement until she is no more. We as a government need to ensure that we continue and our athletes are taken care of beyond. So I won't let any cat out of the bag yet. I cannot say that we've made a definitive decision that A, B, and C will be what we do for Laverne, but I can tell you that we've at least had a preliminary discussion. I've had many preliminary discussions, even Alvina Reynolds, former MP for the area, Teddy Francis, and I've had many suggestions on how we honor her. But we really, of course, we will look at the whole, what's available right now and what we can do that is justifiable. But I can tell you, for me, Laverne is a personal friend. I mean, we travel together as national athletes, and so I'm very sensitive to who Laverne Spencer is.
She is your personal friend. So, you know, I always have that sense of humor, St. Lucia. I will hold you responsible.
Laverne has a specific name for me, you know.
I will hold you accountable as an uncle.
Laverne is actually related to Dupal's Rosalie, so we don't even have that
on
discussion.
A more serious note, St. Lucia, 23 years of unbroken service to country, representing St. Lucia at 4 Olympic Games, the best female high jumper in the Caribbean. In fact, the Americas, upon retirement, she's
North, South, Central America.
She's still the reigning Commonwealth champion, Gold Coast 2018, 16 times senior and 4 times junior sportswoman for the year. Honorable Minister, listen to me a second time. We also have long distance runner Victor Ledgers. Listen well. I believe Ledgers was treated unfairly,
the legend,
when he decided to quit long distance. He served St. Lucia well, never ever been recognized for his tremendous contribution in road running in the Caribbean, apart from being named Sportsman for the Year 93, 95, and 96. And of course, the list goes on. Listen to me again, Honorable. Female bodybuilder and 3 or 4 times OECS champion, Rosemary de Beauville. I was telling you, it's not because it's my sister I'm saying it, you know. I want to be honest with you. It's not because it's my sister I'm saying it. All right? Never ever been recognized. We had a 40-year anniversary celebration for sportsmen in this country. Her name never
was mentioned.
Honorable Minister, I give you the responsibility to take that to cabinet. Listen to me well. Listen again. Cycling. And we make a mockery out of him. And I'm referring to Nigel McGee. We call him Never Win. But this man has participated in every cycling event in this country. Regardless he win, he always finishes. And I admire him for that. But we make mockery by calling him Never Win. This man, as a cyclist, need to be honored. I've been honest with you. I will go again. Former national footballer, cricketer, coach, umpire, Debat Basiel, still umpiring cricket at the age of 70 plus going to 80 or 80 plus going down to 90. We need to recognize these people. We cannot wait for them to leave us and come on the pulpit and say he was a good fella or a good woman. No.
Giving them roses after they can't smell it.
We need to honor those persons. And Honorable Minister, I am telling you to take that to your cabinet. There are more, including me.
There are more.
Including me, you know. I don't think I'm leaving myself behind. No way. I am not leaving myself behind. But I know my turn coming. But I'm speaking for those before me. They need to be recognized, whichever government is in office. Your final comments.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me to. This is the first. Remember, we had a discussion and I told you.
Oh yeah.
I'm a man of my word. I told you the first interview I'm going to do, you spoke to me. We've had a very good relationship. Of course, you're one of those that, pioneered and, set the way for a young, impressionable individual finishing a master's to come and learn how it's done. And of course, you contributed a lot to my maturation in the sports facility, in the sports fraternity and media. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate having this very thorough discussion with you. I will be making my way to other areas to have those discussions as it pertains to the direction that I hope to take sports in St. Lucia. Everything is currently preliminary. There's been a lot of transitioning. I believe that the vision that we are bringing into this new dispensation is something that once the resources are made available, we will be able to execute. And this period, despite the fact of that we are going through this COVID-19 time, will be a period where people will look back and see where sports transitioned into a modern era, a scientific era, an era of total development, and an era where sports no longer operated in a silo, but there was buy-in from different aspects of St. Lucia. And so that is the desire, that is the plan. And in your final pronouncements, respecting what was done before and what has been done by our individuals is another area that I'm passionate about, and we certainly will, as a ministry, do our best to ensure that those people that have contributed to the sports development in St. Lucia are recognized for all they have done. So thank you for inviting me, and of course the conversation continues way beyond. We've had a lot of discussions on sports policy. I've read some documents and woefully inadequate, and so we are going to move forward and do what we need to do and develop sports holistically in St. Lucia. So thanks for having me. Thanks, St. Lucia.
I come into don't get, I just want to read out something here. And Honorable Minister, and when I say certain things, people just think it's joke. You cannot have an Olympian, and I'm referring to Mikili Shalmine. She was in Japan for the Olympic. She's on a new national record. She's attending university in the United States. She's selected on the team to go to Panama. And she's asking the SLOC to approve US $80 a session for psychiatrists. Sorry, a physio, right? And the SLOC has denied that. Come on. This is our athlete. And that athlete need to see or seek professional to ensure that she is good enough, mind is free, and she's going to represent St. Lucia. And you're telling the child then you're not going to approve the $80 session to see, come on, SLOC, you just got in office. You just got into office. That ought not to be. I've been honest with you. And these are the same things I've been talking about, the way we treat our sportsmen and sportswomen in this country. And then she go to Cali, Colombia, and she come back empty-handed.
Pressure.
What you going to tell me, or what you going to tell the nation? She's not good. No, it don't happen that way. I openly say it, so St. Lucia will know how we treat our athletes. And Mr. Minister, I simply hope you make a big difference when it comes to the treatment that our athletes get from the various sporting organizations in this country. I've been honest with you. I'm sick and tired in the way we do things. Like everything else, I have my 2 cents. St. Lucia, we're not doing bad. We have 149 cases. Please, 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 adhere to the protocols. Please. The more we listen and behave in an orderly manner, the cases will drop. And hopefully, when it comes to Christmas, we can see one another again. You see how I sing on television? You know what I'm saying? For those going to their respective place of worship, as always, I wish you journeying mercies, back and forth. And please, St. Lucia, Walk away from trouble. Walk away to live another day. All right? Those crimes that we have in, it don't worth it. Useless killing, it really don't worth it. And of course, those who celebrate birthdays this week, and those celebrating this coming week, from me, I wish you all of God's blessing. I wish each and every one of you traveling near and far, joining mercies, and of course, Honorable Minister.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure having you. I get some WhatsApps there and saying, boy, good show and everything. They tell me, well, boy, I should invite you again. You know.
Of course.
But again, thank you, and of course, extend my respect to your other colleagues in cabinet.
Absolutely.
Of course, to my producer Brendan, thank you for the extended time. I know that's once in every blue moon.
I did expect to be at 8:17.
You know, and of course, from me to each and every one of you on television, and of course on Facebook, Debo, I'm gone. Good night.